This summer, I sat down with Twin Falls Housing Authority Executive Director Sunny Shaw to talk about who she helps and some of the misconceptions around the type of clients who need housing assistance. When we met outside of some of the disabled and family housing provided to Idahoans in the Twin Falls area, we talked about struggles and possible solutions.
Of all of the households we serve, 81% are elderly or disabled. That's a big misconception because a lot of people think that if they're on a subsidized housing program that they are freeloaders, right? Well, 81% are elderly or disabled. And then the other interesting data point in that survey that I did this morning is that of those able-bodied individuals, 91% are working. So that is a huge misconception in regards to housing authority programs across the country. The folks aren't freeloaders. They're just simply either trying to live on Social Security or disability. We know that amount is about $750 to $1,200. So finding an apartment or a home on that rent is next to impossible because you're going to have to make some really hard choices. Or those individuals who are working, sometimes they're underemployed. They're not getting 40 hours a week. Or they're working at a wage that just does not afford them housing on their own.
Shaw said Idahoans need to understand the gravity of the decisions families face if they can't find affordable housing.
We do have households who are having to decide, do I get medicine or do I get food? Or do I take the risk of being 2 months late on my rent and hope my landlord will work with me? Those choices are being made every day. And I'm grateful that I'm not in that situation. I have been in that situation before, so I think it gives me a level of empathy, but we need to tug at that empathy muscle and begin to understand that we have neighbors, we have friends, we have family who are going through this and making tough decisions, and maybe they're not sharing it with you, doesn't mean it's not happening.
There are issues that Shaw believes the state could address but haven't yet. Predominantly, the state has left the Housing Trust Fund unfunded for 30 years.
The Housing Trust Fund was passed by the Idaho legislature in 1992. At that time, they couldn't agree on how to fund it. So they decided, well, we'll create it, we'll get it in statute, and then we're going to kick that can down the road. And since then, no one has wanted to touch it because really it comes back to appropriation and where do you pull the money? And sometimes that's in regards to taxes. So most elected officials do not want to talk about taxes if they don't have to. It's never been funded. It's a shame because the Housing Trust Fund is used in states all across the country to improve housing. So what could happen is if it were funded, then there could be monies made available for low interest loans or bonds or even directly targeting programs that could go to municipalities and to housing authorities to increase the housing stock or to provide affordable options for renting. And so because we've never looked into doing that, we rely on the federal government to subsidize all of our housing programs in Idaho. And the state isn't taking responsibility for affordable housing in Idaho. And it goes back to, at some point, even in Idaho, we have to realize housing is infrastructure. And we have to start funding that so we can create more affordable housing. Industry, people used to follow industry. People used to move to where there were jobs. Now what's happening is the trend. Industry is following people. Well, people can't be in a space if they can't afford to live. And so if we want industry in our state, then we have to have affordable housing.
Without affordable housing, Idahoans in rural areas still face the possibility of homelessness. In rural areas, it may not look the same as homelessness in downtown Boise or urban areas.
So you're going to see homelessness not so much in people who are at the underpass or at the off-ramp. You're going to see homelessness in mother and father who have a couple of generations living with them. A son and a daughter and their children living with them. That's what we see homelessness as. Now, is that appropriate just because it's a different kind of homelessness than in a more urban area? No. Those strains are still on those families and those difficult decisions are still being made by that family. So it does look a little bit different in rural Idaho, but that doesn't mean it's non-existent. It is there.
Even if you've never struggled with housing insecurity, Shaw argued that we should all be invested in finding affordable homes for everyone.
I am responsible for my community, and I am responsible for the families in my community. If we could all just get to where we have a belief that our purpose is bigger than us,